Ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to key concept 5.8, reactions to the industrial economy. In response to the social and economic changes brought about by industrial capitalism, some governments, organizations, and individuals promoted various types of political, social, educational, and urban reforms. So, as we saw in 5.7, people being concentrated into factories made a real big change for industrialized societies. That changed the social structures. There were a lot of new people that were working inside factories, many of whom were very poor. And the economic changes meant that certain individuals got extraordinarily wealthy, but at the same time, other people were becoming very poor in the urbanized centers. So, some of those political reforms were like pushing for the right for women to vote. Some of the social changes involved women working in factories. Some of the educational reforms were in response to child labor laws, opening up public education the way that you and I are more familiar with it today. And of course, some of the urban reforms will be in response to the socialist movements that will begin to say craft public roads or sewage systems inside urbanized centers. In industrialized states, many workers organize themselves, often into these things called labor unions or trade unions, that fought to improve working conditions, limit hours, and gain higher wages for the workers. Workers' movements and political parties merged in different areas, promoting alternative visions of society, like anarchy or utopian socialism or communism. Discontent with established power structures encouraged the development of various ideologies, including those espoused by Karl Marx, and the ideas of socialism as an economic system where the government directs the economy, or communism as a political system that seeks to completely level out all social hierarchies within inside of a society. In response to the expansion of industrializing states, some governments in Asia and Africa, including the Ottoman Empire and the Qing dynasty of China, sought reform and sought to modernize their economies and militaries. Reform efforts were often resisted by some members of government and established elite groups. So in the Ottoman Empire, there was a lot of push from the Young Turks and the Young Ottomans to try to industrialize, embrace industrial capitalism as an economic system, and embrace some of the more nationalistic ideas that had been going on in Europe. But a lot of that was very highly resisted by religious scholars who were in the very influential in the government, called the ulama. And in the case of the Qing dynasty, they tried to get the government to sponsor what's known as the self-strengthening movement, which was going to be the movement in which China tried to industrialize underneath the government. But conservatives inside the government, including the Empress Dowager Cixi, ended up rejecting that movement for industrialism. Instead, Cixi had this really fancy boat built. 5.9 is society and the industrial age. New social classes developed because of industrialization. They include the middle class, which was like professors and doctors and lawyers, people who were wealthy enough to have in-home servants. And of course, the industrial working class developed. While women and often children in working class families typically held wage earning jobs to supplement their family's income, middle class women who did not have the same economic demands to satisfy were increasingly limited to development. They were increasingly limited to the home, where it was seen that that was their appropriate place. The rapid urbanization that accompanied global capitalism at times led to a variety of challenges. Those challenges include pollution. Industrial chemicals were dumped into rivers. Of course, more burning of coal meant air pollution. Poverty became rampant, especially because older people were getting sick from industrial diseases. Again, diseases mostly that spread because of improper sanitation inside the cities. So that's like tuberculosis and cholera. That left children without any adults to take care of them. And so crime on the streets became a serious issue, as well as child homelessness. Public health crises involved massive outbreaks of disease The city of Manchester in England is a good example of this, where there were housing shortages, again leading to homelessness, and insufficient infrastructure to accommodate urban growth, which meant that people were increasingly relocating into these tenements that would have 10, 12, 15 people living inside one room and that type of thing. But the population did urbanize. A massive spike and increase came with the percentage of the world population that lived in cities. The development of industrial capitalism led to increased standards of living for some. Again, the middle class and the wealthy industrial class, the bourgeoisie, and to continued improvement in manufacturing methods that increased the availability, affordability, and variety of consumer goods. Railroads, steamships, and the telegraph made exploration, development, and communication possible in interior regions globally, which led to increased trade and migration. The 18th century marked the beginning of an intense period of revolution and rebellion against existing governments, leading to the establishment of new nation states around the world. Enlightenment philosophies applied new ways of understanding and empiricist approaches to both the natural world and to human relationships. They also re-examined the role that religion played in public life, emphasizing the importance of reason instead of faith. Philosophers developed new ideas about the individual, about natural rights, and about the social contract. The rise and diffusion of Enlightenment thought that questioned established tradition, especially in religion, often preceded revolutions and rebellions against existing government, like the US Revolution starting in 1775. Nationalism also became a major force, shaping the historical development of states and empires. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Unit 5.